I've been feeling kind of rubbish about myself recently, so I have decided to try painting a self-portrait in the hopes that that might help make me feel a little bit better. So for the last couple of months, I have been feeling very bleh. That is low in energy, low in motivation, and very low in confidence. Though actually the low confidence thing has been going on for much, much longer, maybe like 25 years longer, but it does come in ebbs and flows, and lately it has been flowing pretty hard. If you want to test your self-esteem and body confidence, then definitely start a YouTube channel and spend hours and hours filming and editing clips of yourself. While I wish I was immune to issues surrounding vanity, I unfortunately very much am not. And though I hate to admit it, it has been increasingly getting to me. So yesterday I was sat on the sofa procrastinating from making the video that I thought I was going to be making this month, cuddled up in a dressing gown with an unwashed face and dreading being on camera again. And when you're in that kind of headspace, it's very easy to just stay there and endlessly ruminate on all of your insecurities, but that's not very enjoyable, it's not productive, nor is it healthy. So I decided to try and drag myself out of it using a technique that I have employed in the past, which is to force myself to look at my old selfies. And luckily, or maybe unluckily for me, I have over 4,300 of them in an iCloud album that I can peruse through. This technique might sound counterintuitive since I've just got done explaining that the thing that's been so triggering for me lately is the constant engagement with my own self-image via these videos. But the thing about having long-term body image issues is that they are just that, long-term, meaning that the majority of photos I have of myself from the past were also taken at times when I was not happy with how I looked. And being able to look back on them after the passage of time is actually very refreshing. And it allows me to view myself much more objectively than I'm often able to in the moment. When I look back on a lot of these photos now, I can see that I looked absolutely fine, or even dare I say, pretty nice. So it's a good reminder that my self-perception can often be flawed. In a society that values physical appearance so highly, it makes sense that it's something that a lot of us will become fixated on at different points in our lives. And while we may be able to rationalize that our physicality has no bearing on our self-worth, that is not the message that we are constantly being sold. So it becomes very easy for our little brains to play tricks on us and lead us down these paths of self-hatred and obsession. As somebody who's lived with eating disorders and had quite bad body dysmorphia in the past, I know that this kind of self-destructive thinking is something that I am prone to, but it is not something that I want to keep taking on. I really want to be able to accept, lay claim to, and even enjoy my own self-image without feeling any kind of shame. And I don't know if that is too much to ask. Looking through all of my old selfies, not only was I often thinking, oh, I look quite nice there, I like my hair or my outfit or whatever else, but I was also thinking about the stories and the context behind the images, and I found myself feeling a great deal of empathy and compassion for those younger versions of myself who I know were carrying the weight of various life events, damaging societal norms and personal insecurities. And seeing myself in all of these images, I did not feel the need to nitpick my perceived physical flaws. I wasn't zeroing in on my teeth or my chin or my stomach. I wasn't hating myself. I was also happy to find photos with interesting compositional elements, cool lighting and intriguing mood. And I was able to start viewing myself more as an art object almost, valuing the shapes that my body made or the colour of my hair or my clothing and the little subtleties in my facial expression. It was a good prompt to tell myself that most likely in 5 or 10 years time, when I'm looking back on photos of myself from now, I will also be viewing myself through a much kinder lens than I'm allowing in this moment, I will be thinking about 2026 and what I was doing and what the world was doing around me, and I'll probably like the subtle signs of wrinkles appearing on my face and the softness of my body, and I imagine I will be thinking, why was I so bothered about how I looked? So after all of this self-reflection, I decided to temporarily shelve that video I'd been procrastinating from and make this one instead. And in a spurt of energy, I got myself up off the sofa, washed my face and shoved some makeup on so that I could take some new selfies to use as reference images for a painting. The goal of which would be to try to view my 2026 self as an art object in this moment, worthy of sitting with and appreciating and enjoying. And I'm very sorry, by the way, that that introduction was so ridiculously long. I just have a lot of thoughts. So for this painting, clothes-wise, I wanted to wear something with a little bit of texture and colour and movement, so I went for this purple floral dress with my beautiful French linen skirt layered over the top. And then I also tied a random olive green ribbon around my waist as well for a little bit of contrast. I'm hoping if this piece doesn't turn out terrible, then when it's done, I will eventually be able to display it in my living room, since that is the room that I'm currently supposed to be working on and am procrastinating from doing. So when considering a setting for my painting, the living room felt like the correct choice. Composition-wise, I wanted to lean into a well-known artistic trope of the reclining female figure, so I decided to lie down on the sofa for the pose. And I also had a vague idea that I should be scrolling on my phone in it to give me a little bit more purpose or tell more of a story. I'm not sure. Instead of taking a series of still images, I actually decided it was going to be easier if I just filmed clips of myself doing various poses, and this meant that I could keep an eye on the viewfinder as I posed to make sure the framing was good and I could adjust myself accordingly. Also, using a video camera is just more forgiving than a point and click. It gives you lots more frames to choose from and decreases the likelihood that I'm going to be blinking in every shot considerably. I then imported that footage onto my laptop so that I could pick out some stills that I liked, and my initial selection of those was thus, which I then narrowed down to these 5. Out of these, I think that this one is probably the one in which I look nicest. And not to say that vanity isn't playing a part here, it is kind of the underpinning of this whole video, but looking the nicest does not necessarily translate to the best or most interesting composition for a painting, and by that criteria, I actually think that these 2 are the best. This one has some interesting shapes going on in it with the arms. I think the olive ribbon at the waist really pops in it, which is nice. And I also thought that the foreshortening on the body would be an interesting challenge to try and paint. But ultimately, I have selected this other one because I was feeling quite married to the phone scrolling idea. I think it adds an intriguing question to the image. Am I scrolling through photos of beautiful women on Instagram? Am I reading a Reddit thread about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Or am I taking a selfie? We don't know. And I think that's kind of fun. So once I had my image selected, I could pop into town to pick up a canvas. I got this lovely cheap one from the works. It was £9. I'm not a professional painter, so I don't need the professional grade materials. And canvas in hand, I made an illustrated document to the correct dimensions so that I could import my reference image into it to make sure that the framing of the whole thing was going to be right. Then I overlaid a grid on top of that I can use as a guide for my drawing, and I printed it out. So now we are finally ready to get painting, but I'm not going to be doing that today. I am going to be doing that today. And I've just gotten done drawing out my grid markings onto this canvas because I am not hugely confident in my ability to get an accurate likeness when I'm drawing people. So hopefully this grid is going to serve as kind of a cheat sheet for me. I know that some people are very anti using a grid, which fair enough, but personally I think anything that is going to help you to make the art that you want to make is worth giving a try. And now I can get to sketching, and I'm going to take some care with this, but I'm also going to try not to get too bogged down by the details because I don't want a load of pencil underneath my paint. Just going to try and get the basic shapes in, starting with some of the bigger bits, the window, the sofa, and then pop the body in and just see how we go. I do think that this grid is going to be handy for me because I have a tendency when I'm drawing, especially if I'm drawing people, to end up with my lines getting very tight and then the drawing ends up much smaller than I want it to be. Like if I was just looking at this and not referring to my picture here, I probably would have already ended up scaling it back down quite a lot compared to what size it should be, because to me these things seem too big, but the grid is telling me that they're not. This, what I'm drawing now, is the hand, and I don't think I would have done it nearly this big without this grid, so it's certainly a useful tool. Probably better if I stick that up there so I can see it easier. It's been a while since I've been to a live drawing class or anything, so I'm quite rusty with drawing the human form, and maybe I should look up some local classes in my area and go along to some, because that's a nice productive thing to do of an evening. Also, actually, live drawing is a great practice for body positivity as well. I'm sure many of you watching will have been to a live drawing class at one time or another, but for those of you who haven't, it is just a class where there is a nude model doing a variety of different poses for different lengths of time so that you can practice speed drawing the human form. And never once have I been to a live drawing class and thought anything negative about the model's appearance. When you go to a class, you're not hoping for or expecting a specific type of model, and in that setting, societal beauty standards feel pretty irrelevant. I've drawn people of all different shapes, sizes, ages, and genders, and I've always found so much beauty in their unique bodies and faces that it makes me feel a bit silly when I think so negatively about my own. I actually did some life modelling myself when I was at university as well, and that was also an interesting practice in self-acceptance. At the end of each class, it was really interesting to go around and see how all of these different artists had captured my image, and I did find it quite empowering because when you're naked in front of a room full of people, you can't really get any more exposed than that. So the things you might be worrying about on a day-to-day basis kind of float away. If you do a sitting down pose, you will have visible fat rolls. If you bend over, the cellulite on your ass will be on full display, and if you lie down, at least one side of the room will have that unflattering view right up your nostrils, and you just have to accept that they are seeing what you really look like, and that's okay. Right, I'm going to put some music on, lock in, and finish off this sketch. Okay, the base sketch is about as done as I think it needs to be. I was finding myself getting really frustrated with this face, and then I realised, stop, you can worry about that when you're actually painting. I did also realise that I made a mistake with my grid. It was supposed to be 30 squares wide, but it's actually 29 because I left too much width on either end. And so instead of redrawing it all, I've just decided to nix the end line on my reference image, and that should be fine. And now I want to cover it all up with some actual paint, and I'm going to start by doing just a single colour wash over the whole thing, just to stop this canvas being so glaringly white when I actually start painting. So I'm going to do that with a really watered down rusty pinky orangey tone. All done. Look at this beautiful orange canvas. I have wiped away some of my pencil markings, but I can still mostly see them. Also, it occurred to me that this was my first opportunity to wear my clown painting smock that I made in a video earlier this year. Go and watch that if you haven't already. I haven't done any painting since I made this, and I have also been a little bit paranoid about getting paint on it because of how long it took me to make. But the idea of it was always that it was going to get covered in paint anyway, so maybe I just need to break the seal on that and wipe my fingers on it. Done. Now it doesn't matter so much. Right, I'm gonna let this dry for 10 minutes or so before I start on the actual painting. And while that dries, I thought I could show you one of my first ever self-portraits. Here she is. This is a picture I drew when I was a kid. There is actually a little sticker on the back of the frame here that says my name and the number 6. So I'm going to assume I was 6 years old when I drew this. I have no memory of making it, though I do have a lot of memories of it because it was hung in my grandparents' kitchen for about 25 years. And after my gran passed away a few years ago, my family gave it back to me. Though I've never really known what to do with it. Maybe I should hang it up in my kitchen just for old time's sake. In my teen years, I remember always feeling really embarrassed of it, especially the nose, which does look a little bit sus, but my gran was always full of praise for it. I remember her saying that the way I did this background was incredible and she was amazed by my artistic vision. And I really took that with me and turned her enthusiasm for my art into my own enthusiasm for making it. So it really goes to show how one person's blind faith in you as a child can really shape the rest of your life. I think self-portraits are probably one of the first things we're asked to draw when we're at school. I don't know how many of you have those tea towels with everyone's faces drawn on them, but I think it's really good practice for kids to learn how to perceive and express their own image, even if their expression of that does give them a nose that looks like a ball sack. But there you go. Beige flannel original art from 1998. I'm not very good at maths. Right, let's start blocking in some colours on this painting. I need to get my reference image stuck back up there. And I'm just going to block in some of the really basic colours so I can see what's going to go there when I come back and add more detail. I've made one other video on this channel solely about doing a painting, and actually I made that when I was also feeling pretty sad, so there does seem to be a pattern here. And I think I repeated probably an annoying number of times in that video that I am really not a painter, and I'm repeating that again now just to manage your expectations of how good this painting is likely to turn out. I did go to art school, but I specialised in sculpture, and the technical aspects of painting aren't something that I've really studied, so I'm not hugely confident with it. When I do paint, I use acrylics for ease, though in the future I might like to explore oils on this channel maybe, so let me know if that's something you would like to see. Gotta say, it's really nice to be back in my art room working on something smaller like this, because I've been doing my living room pretty exclusively for the last couple of months. I haven't really been in here, and that's been sad because I love this room. I feel like doing this kind of project where I'm mostly sitting in one place is very calming and meditative for me, and it's just a good way to clear the brain slightly. I think I mentioned earlier on that I have been feeling really low in motivation recently and not wanting to film so much. I tend to always get like that when I finish a project and put a video out. I have a bit of a crash and can't really function at all for at least a few days. Though in this most recent instance it was a lot more than a few days. It was like over a week of me wanting to do virtually nothing. And when I get like that, I always try and tell myself that it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, I know my patterns and that it's pretty natural for me, but it is always uncomfortable and it doesn't help my self-esteem to feel like I'm not doing the things I should be doing. But yeah, being in this room is actually really helping because it's just a lot lighter and brighter than it is in the living room. And sometimes a change of scenery, even if it is walking 10 steps from one room to another, is what you need to keep that sanity going And while I would really be happy if this painting turns out well, I also won't be devastated if it doesn't, because at least I am doing something. I also think I've been putting a little bit too much emphasis recently onto perfectionism, which is something I actually rally against in these videos, probably because I am speaking from experience. It drove me absolutely crazy that in my last video the audio was really off. It made me feel all types of ways about myself and my inability to do something well. And yeah, that's something I really want to fight against, because when you get sucked into a cycle of like perfectionist thinking, you end up achieving nothing. I don't really know what kind of style I'm going for with this painting. Like, I love more of an impressionist style, but I don't think I'm particularly good at it. And I know full well that I am not a good enough painter to go for a super hyper realistic style either. So I'm going to say that I'm pitching for somewhere in between those two things. I also thought that a fun thing I could do while I work on this painting would be to highlight some of the selfies that I've taken throughout the years and talk through a little bit about what was going on in my life when they were taken, maybe how I was feeling about myself at the time, and also we can judge them a little bit on their artistic merit as self-portrait photographs in a segment that I'm going to be calling Beige Flannel's Next Top Selfie. Wanna be on top? So let's start with one of the earliest ones that I have, and it is an absolute banger, to be honest. Here it is. This photo is from 2005, so I'm about 13 years old here, and this was taken on a night when I was staying at my best friend's house and we were dressing up, taking photos on her digital camera, which was a favourite pastime of ours at that time. And I remember when this specific photo was taken, we absolutely died laughing at it just because of the pure maniacal look on my face. And I remember finding this picture both hilarious and devastating. I was not pleased with how I looked in it, but I did think it was a funny image. I think 13 is an awkward time for lots of people with their body image. Your body and your face is changing. I was starting to get quite bad acne at this point, and I also had this absolute fuck-ass haircut that my sister had given me in the bathroom. So this photo would definitely never have been a contender for the MySpace profile photo where boys could have seen it. But artistically, I do think that this image is excellent. The overall composition is quite strong. I like that dark shadow behind my head, which would have been caused by the fact that this was a flash photo on a crap old digital camera. I like the intensity in the eyes and the lipstick that I'm wearing that really pulls you into the face. And I also think that my teeth look really great. So this is still in the running to becoming Beige Flannel's Next Top Selfie. So I'm putting these colours in at the moment just very blockily so that I know what is what later down the line. Obviously the more paint I add, the more I'm going to lose sight of my grid lines, so this will then become the guide for everything else. I do not want to allow myself to get distracted by details at this point. That's not what this step is about. I am actually quite liking how it's looking with just these rough strokes. It's got a kind of faded, dreamy quality, which is satisfying. Even though it's not what I'm going for with the finished piece, it's nice to enjoy the different stages of a painting, seeing how it slowly comes together. It will be nice when I get to the point of actually adding details to this, because there's so much nice texture and pattern in this photo. I think it's going to be very satisfying to try and paint. The only bit that I'm not excited to try and paint is the face, because that is the bit where I often fail. I think when I tried to do portraiture in the past, my pictures will look enough like the person they're supposed to be to where you could look at it and be like, oh, that's John Bon Jovi or whoever. Not that I've ever done a painting of John Bon Jovi, but you get the idea. They just look like a weird version of them. I see a lot of like bad fan art like that on eBay, and actually there is something kind of like naively nice about that type of picture. But I would love to be able to properly capture a person. So it would be nice if this looked a good deal like this in the face. I will be leaving that conundrum till last, I think. I really wanted this patchwork blanket in the picture because I just love all of the colours and shapes in it, and also my gran made it, so that is special too. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a pig to try and paint because of all the aforementioned colours and shapes. But I relish the challenge. I'm using 2 quite big paintbrushes at the minute just for all of this blocking in. Just very satisfying to get the colours down onto the canvas. And oh, actually I can see that my camera is currently overheating. So I'm going to switch it off and set myself a little timer for 30 minutes to see how much I can get done in that time. 30-minute timer is up. And this is what I've achieved. I managed to get a lot of these blanket colours blocked in at the back, so that is looking good. Now I'm going to move on to working on this body and trying to get some of the clothing blocked in. Starting out by mixing a kind of nice lilac-y shade for the top of the dress I'm wearing. It's nice doing a little picture of yourself and treating yourself kind of like a model. Obviously, lots of artists throughout the years have done many a self-portrait because the cheapest person to get to sit for you is yourself. And I think a lot of us do as well like to explore our own images. Most of the work that I did when I was at uni was also self-portraiture, but that tended to be in the form of very abstractive sculptures. I'll shove some up on the screen now. Still finding these grid lines extremely helpful because you can kind of just zero in on the little squares to pop in the colours, focusing on what the negative space is. It's making my job much easier. That looks alright. Let's put in the olivey band at the waist. That pop of the bright olive, really satisfying. Now I'll colour in the skirt, and while I do that, why don't we rewind again and pop another of my old selfies up on the screen. This one I fear is going to be cringier than last, so I'm going to look away while we talk about it. Wanna be on top? So this picture is a couple of years later than that last one, from about 2007, and as you can see we've got some heavy editing going on here. This was from the era of the MySpace profile picture when the trend was to up the contrast so much that you have basically no discernible features. I used to do this to a lot of my pictures, and I think that that is testament to my insecurity, especially about my skin at the time. You can also see in this picture that I'm basically 90% fringe. The big swoopy side fringe was also very much a trend at the time, but I can't say with a huge amount of confidence that I pulled it off very well. Ultimately though, what I look like in this picture is a young teenager, which is exactly what I was, so I don't see any point in being too hard on myself for it. Artistically, I don't think that this photo is saying much. It's not nearly as dynamic as the last one. I feel like the thing that it's mostly communicating is my own insecurity hiding behind all of this editing and fringe. And despite my clear efforts to make this look cool, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that this photo is no longer in the running to being Beige Flannel's next top selfie. Okay, that's more or less blocked in now, and I think I'm done for the day. Need to go and do some other stuff, and I'm happy with where we've gotten to. This is a good jumping off point to come back to tomorrow, so we'll leave this to dry and I will see you in the morning. I'm back and I'm ready to crack on with this painting, though I have just been sat staring at it for the last 5 minutes because I'm unsure what bit of it I should start on. I am looking forward to starting to go over all of this first layer that I did yesterday, but I think maybe what I should do is just get a first coat down on some of these places where I haven't put them yet. So I think maybe I'll start on this arm and hand and try and get that looking kind of good because we have some quite high contrast in the values on this arm. All of this bit is going to be pretty dark and this section of the arm is really light. So if I can get the colours right there, then I'll be able to copy those shades when I come to do the other visible skin. So let's get going. I do find it pretty hard to get skin tone right. Sometimes it ends up looking a bit too grey or something, I don't know. See, that looks so bright. It would be cool to like properly study colour theory, colour mixing and stuff. I remember at uni we did have like a few classes just about pigments and things so that you could get a base understanding of where different colours come from. But I don't know how much of that information I actually took in. A lot of the time in lectures, my brain did switch off, if I'm honest with you. I was there more for the making things rather than the listening to things. I find like sometimes when you're putting shadows in, they're not where you expect them to be, and it can be really tempting to just use them to kind of outline all of your shapes, but then it really quickly looks very cartoony, which isn't a bad thing, but it isn't what I'm wanting for this piece. I'm going to go around adding in darker areas and I'm going to do my 30-minute timer trick, because if I film this whole thing I'm going to end up with absolutely hours and hours of pretty boring footage. So I'll give you an update in 30 minutes. 30 minutes are up and this is what I've done. Been working mostly on the arm and the hand, adding some little detail in from this cushion here. I do find it much easier when I'm painting to kind of go bit by bit, so maybe that's how I'll do it going forwards. I'm not sure. The arm is still looking quite purple, but I'm not sure if that's just because the colours around it aren't fully put in yet. It's hard to say. And now we carry on. Just going to work into this bit a little bit now, I think. One of the reasons why I want to do a painting like this of me on my sofa is because I came across a painting recently when I was doing my usual eBay scrolling, which was of a kind of sofa lounging scene, and I thought it was really beautiful. It was more money than I could spend, but I clocked it as a thing that I could maybe try and make my own version of. I was originally thinking what I wanted to do was a big painting of me and my boyfriend both lying on the sofa together that I would be able to display above the sofa in my living room. And I still do want to make that painting, but like I said, I want that one to be really big, and I think I'll have to stretch my own canvas for it, which is just a kind of tedious thing to do. So this painting is kind of like a tester for that, seeing whether my skills are up to par to justify spending money and time doing this big version. But yeah, the painting on eBay, I really liked the colours and textures in it. I could really feel the coziness of the room, and I want that to come across in this painting as well. I've spoken before about how I've used eBay quite a lot in the past to get inspiration for things to make. It's way better than Pinterest for me. There's just so much different art and knickknacks and all sorts of stuff on there. It's a great resource for scrolling through and like finding oddities. So I highly recommend. And while I slowly continuously go over this small section of this painting, how about we show some more of my old selfies, eh? Wanna be on top? So since I showed you those first two selfies, I have actually decided to switch up how I'm doing this whole thing, because as it turns out, I had not thought it through properly ahead of time. Last night I was trying to figure out which photo I was going to show next, and like I said, I have over 4,000 of the damn things to sift through, so I was getting really overwhelmed and I was struggling to make my selections. And instead of doing the same thing and just randomly picking some out, I instead spent way too long going all the way through my album, favoriting things which I thought were more visually interesting and then categorizing those favorites into 7 key themes, which I found were recurring within a lot of the images. Then I picked out 8 of the best photos from within each category, which I will briefly show all of, so that I can then decide which photo from each category is the best, and thus will still be in the running to becoming Beige Flannel's next top selfie. Don't know if any of that made sense, but even if it didn't, it doesn't really matter because this stupid game is ultimately unimportant. Let's move on to our first category, which is visible nostrils. Here are our 8 contenders for this category, and these are all photos taken from that slightly unflattering angle where you can see straight up your nose, and it seems I take a lot of photos like this, so there were plenty for me to choose from. But out of these, I think that the best visible nostril selfie is this one. This was taken in 2016 in the bedroom that I used to share with my ex shortly before we broke up and I had to move out. And I was really depressed at this time in my life and very much not liking myself or how I looked. In the context of a relationship breakdown, it's really easy to feel unattractive and inadequate, and that's definitely how I was feeling at the time. But all that being said, I really like this photo. I think it's quite an engaging image, and despite all of the clutter going on in the background, the main subject really pops out, partly because of the positioning in the centre of the frame, partly because of the open-mouthed facial pose, and also because of the mixed focus going on here. I think it is a successful image overall. So congratulations to this one, you are still in the running to becoming Beige Flannel's next top selfie, and to the rest of you, please pack your bags and go home. Just been working on this top mainly, and I'm finding this bit really satisfying to paint. I've always really enjoyed drawing and painting fabric. All of the folds and the subtle ways that the light catches. I think these colours are great too, this like bright aqua colour and the lilac next to each other with these pops of red. Just a very pleasing palette. Actually, one of the things that sparked my recent body image crisis was to do with clothing, because I was running out of space in my wardrobe and I knew full well that I had quite a lot of stuff in there that didn't fit me anymore, but I've been avoiding going through it because I knew that that was going to be triggering for me. And then a month or so ago, I bit the bullet and just did it. Tried on a load of stuff, got things all together to go to the charity shop and whatnot, and I'm having to get rid of a lot of really lovely clothes that have brought me a lot of joy in the past, but that I don't ever wear anymore because, like I said, they don't fit me well. And also, to be honest, my lifestyle's different now. I'm mostly at home doing something like this, so pretty vintage dresses don't get a lot of use. But yeah, going through all of it did trigger me as I anticipated it would, and contributed to this little spiral that I'm having. I don't think it would be a good idea for me to go into a huge amount of detail regarding my issues, my eating disorder, because that could easily be triggering for people watching and for myself as well. But I will say I have had some of those thoughts which I thought were pretty well buried by this point in my life coming back up. Some of those kind of damaging behaviours rearing their ugly heads, and I'm gonna do my best to fight against it, because that whole thing is not something I want to waste any more years to. If any of you watching do have problems with eating and anything like that, please, please, please listen to me. That life is much better in recovery. Being thin is not worth the stuff that comes from it. It's also why I've tried to be pretty selective with the selfies that I'm showing in this video. I'm not putting in any of the ones that are really evidently unhealthy from that time. Don't think that that would be a responsible thing to do. But yeah, speaking of which, maybe we should go into another round of judging.
Wanna be on top?
The next category we're picking from I have titled Sad and Alone, because this is a theme that came up repeatedly throughout my selfie album. I've always had a little bit of a complex about smiling in photos. I don't love my teeth, and it's also just not how my face naturally wants to sit. Even though I do smile a fair amount in day-to-day life, as soon as you stick a camera in front of me, my natural smile will quickly transform into an awkward, thin-lipped grin, like. So usually when I'm taking selfies, I just prefer to look surly, and I have taken many an angsty photo of myself in my time. And I think that the best sad and alone selfie I've taken is this one. This photo is also from 2016, post-breakup now, and I'm here in the new house share I've moved into, leaning up against my bedroom door. 2016 was a particularly rough year for me. Not only my relationship woes, but at this time I was also back working in a dead-end retail job and commuting many hours a day. And I think my general exhaustion really comes through in this image. When you are really busy and tired, self-care and trying to make yourself look pretty becomes a very low priority, and I know that I was not taking very good care of myself around this time, which shows. The yellow toned light in this image and the vintage nightgown that I'm wearing kind of gives a sickly look to the whole thing, and the fact that I'm staring off out of frame expresses a kind of despondency that I think was very true to life. I really like the composition of this image, and I actually think that this would make a really cool painting. So well done to this. You are still in the running to becoming Beige Flannel's next top selfie, and hard luck to the rest of you. Okay, so I've just been adding more shadows and darkness to this bottom blue blanket here, just to see if I've got the kind of values right on this arm. I do need to fix the brush strokes on it, but I think that looks about right. I'm gonna go back in with some highlights once this is dry. I know I was focusing on this top, but I'm actually enjoying jumping around a bit. I'm trying my best to make this video somewhat entertaining, because I know sitting watching me in one place just painting something could be slightly boring, which is why I'm doing this slightly torturous selfie segment. I hope that it's not coming across as too self-obsessed. I also hope that it's not seeming like I'm fishing for compliments or anything in this video. It's always kind of tricky trying to express body image issues to other people, because it can seem like it's putting them on the spot to be like, no, you're so pretty. And that is something that I have tended to do as well in these types of conversations. But I do think that people should be free to just kind of talk about their insecurities, and it shouldn't be like an embarrassing or shameful thing or look like begging behaviour. I'm hoping that it isn't coming across that way, but I guess I've got no control over that. But yeah, I'm really not asking for comments on my appearance, positive or negative, to be honest. It's just the relevant context to why I'm doing this specific project at this specific time. I like treating my videos as kind of like projects I would have done at art school, whereby you don't only make the thing, but you also explain the context behind the thing that you're doing. It's quite like a fun academic practice for me, which I have really missed since graduating. I actually love that this YouTube channel is giving me an excuse to do all of this working out again. It kind of forces me to try and understand a bit more what I'm doing myself. I don't think that all art needs to be saying something. Some things can just be driven by practical or aesthetic reasons, but those themselves are also still reasons. So when that's the case in the things I make on this channel, I hope I managed to explain that as well. I don't know though. I also don't want to like over intellectualize things either, because I know that that can be kind of tedious. But I will say, since I started kind of working on this painting literally, and also working through the ideas of what I wanted to do for this video in my head, I have been feeling better about myself, because my focus has been less on my chin and more on something that I I'm excited by. But yeah, I think I've yapped enough for a little while, so maybe I will shut the camera off for a short while and show you how we're doing in an hour. 1 hour progress check. I've just been darkening up some of this, doing a bit over here, doing a bit over here, doing a bit on this arm. Like I said, I'm bouncing about. Don't know how much longer I'm going to work on this today. I think I'll do another hour's worth off camera and then show you where we've gotten up to by the end of today's session. Just over an hour later and I have officially run out of steam. No part of this is fully done, though I did try and fill in a lot more of the top, so that is looking okay. The rest of it is still very patchy and needs a lot of work. I wanted to use up some of the bigger globs of paint I had left on my palette, so I just went over that background a bit with a colour that's not quite right. But for a second coat, that is fine. And now I'm going to have a little break from this and come back to you tomorrow. Day 3 of working on this painting, and coming in and looking at it this morning, I'm not sure how confident I'm feeling with it. I'm trying to keep in mind that it's obviously far from finished. I was working a lot on this top yesterday and I can see now that it is a lot darker than it should be based on this image. So I'm going to have to brighten that up with another layer. But I think the main thing that is throwing me off is this weird empty orange space where the face should be. So I think it's time I bite the bullet and actually try and get at least one layer on here to see if I can get any kind of likeness. And I'm going to need some peace and quiet while I do this. So I think let's pop some music on and see how well I can do. Okay, so far it's looking kind of haunting. Not sure about it. Doing something like this really does highlight the limitations of acrylic paint. Obviously the layers dry pretty quickly when you put them on, so it's very hard to blend colours, but I should be able to get this blended in a lot better as I add more layers to it. And I am going to carry on working on this, and while I do so, let's judge some more of my old selfies. Wanna be on top? Our next category is being ill. And I don't know about any of you, but I do tend to take a little selfie when I'm feeling sick, just so I can look back on it later to prove to myself that I actually was sick and I wasn't just making it up. So here I am in various states of illness. And I think that the best of this slightly rough bunch is this one. This is from 2023 and shows me lying in bed recovering from some kind of cold. When you're ill, you don't tend to feel too good about how you look, but you also don't tend to care very much because you feel ill. I don't fully know now why I picked this one. Me post-wisdom tooth removal with a hugely swollen jaw was also a strong contender, but my judging criteria for this game is very much like America's Next Top Model. Purely arbitrary, though I am trying to take into account the loose desire to find something that would make the best painting composition, and I prefer the overall image here. I like the juxtaposition of the colourful background with my pained expression and the arm flailing up above my head. So congratulations, blah blah blah, beige flannel's next top selfie, and bye to the rest of you. This damn face is driving me crazy. I've done the thing again where it looks like a face but it doesn't look like the picture, but I can't keep going over and over it because it's not fully dry yet. So I'm going to move on to other areas and then come back to it later. It's good at least that it's got a first kind of thing down on it, even if I don't love how it looks. I think I'll work on the area immediately surrounding the face so that I can see if that helps me to hate it a bit less. I'll show you how we're looking in 30 minutes. An hour's gone by and not a huge amount more has been achieved. I just can't stop looking at this face and asking, what is it that is wrong with it? Why doesn't it look like that face? So I'm going to do my old trick of taking a photo of this one and then layering it underneath the real photo on Illustrator so I can see where exactly I've gone wrong. Okay, that showed me that all of the elements are slightly off, which I was expecting. But the main thing I've realised I've messed up on is the angle of this chin here. Comes out a lot further in my image and it's more squared than in the painting. So I am going to fix that now while we do another round of this selfie game. Wanna be on top? The next judging theme is mirrors, because a mirror selfie is an obvious classic. And I have many of these strewn throughout my album, though I would say that mirror selfies don't tend to be the most compositionally interesting images, nor do I feel that most of them express much about me beyond what clothes I have on that day. So I tried my best to pick out some ones that were a little bit more interesting. And the judges have decided that this is the winner, which is technically not cheating, even though there isn't much of me visible in it, because that is my hand. This was taken in 2014, shortly after I moved down to London post-university. Despite being new to the city, I was already feeling very jaded by my lack of prospects of getting any kind of paid work within the art world, and in lieu of any real creative outlet, I started experimenting by taking slightly surrealist self-portrait photographs at home. For this one, I stuck a mirror on top of this pole thing and reflected my hand into it, with the vague idea that it was representing the closed doors and hands in my face that I was experiencing every time I sent my CV over to a gallery or an arts organisation or whatever. Of all the photos I took around this time, this one was always my favourite, and I still enjoy it to this day. So it is still in the running to becoming Beige Flannel's next top selfie, and sorry to everyone else. Okay, so I realised that another thing that was wrong with the face was the eyes. They were a bit too high up. So I painted over them and adjusted this one. I think that this one is now in the right place. Tried to do this one, but I think it is now too low down and she's looking cross-eyed. So I need to wait till this is dried to paint over it for the second time and then have another go with that. Okay, I've been working on this for about 10 hours today, and I think it's time for me to stop and eat some food. I'm a bit annoyed that I am working for the next couple of days because I really just want to carry on with this. I've been having a lot of fun doing all of this patchwork. I think that the face is looking a lot better now. I also did quite a lot of work on this hand, but it all needs a lot more doing, which I will be cracking on with in a couple of days' time. So I'll see you then. Back to business. And even though I was very annoyed to have to take a couple of days away from this painting to go to work, I actually think it ended up being a good thing to take a little break from it. When you're staring at something for so long and obsessing over the little details, it can be really easy to lose your objective view on that thing. Much like how we are constantly seeing ourselves and we can lose perspective on our own appearances. And sometimes it's good to just get a fresh set of eyes on a problem. Whether that's through giving your own eyes a little bit of time to rest and regroup, or by borrowing the eyes of somebody else. After I finished working on this the other night, I took a little photo of it and sent that over to my boyfriend and asked him if there was anything he could see that was glaringly wrong with the face. So now I have a short list of minor corrections that I want to make on it. So firstly, I need to lighten up this shading on the side of the nose, which Jack pointed out is currently way too dark. Now I need to square up this jawline a bit and adjust the shape of the side of this face. and also add a bit more shadow to the neck and the underside of the chin. Next, the eyelids need to be slightly more closed like they are in our reference photo, so I'm going to do that. And then finally, the lips need darkening up a bit as well. Okay, it's hard to tell if any of that made much of a difference, and I probably will still keep touching it up little bits as I look at it while I work on the rest of it, but we're not aiming for perfection here, and with those changes I think I'm mostly happy with it now and I can hopefully stop obsessing about it. I've got to say though, it's been really nice obsessing about a painting of my face rather than the issues I have with my real one. And I've been really enjoying the practical challenges that working on this painting has been throwing up for me. Mixing the right colours, trying to get the shapes and the patterns correct. It's been taking up a lot of my brain power, but in a good way for once. I think that partaking in a challenging but enjoyable hobby is the best way to intervene with negative thinking patterns, whether for you that's through art or reading or music or sport or whatever else. When you focus more on what you do rather than what you look like, it does help me to feel less self-conscious. One thing I am quite conscious about though is the length of this video. I've been doing a rough edit of it as I've been working on this, and it's already nearly at an hour long. And I really thought that this was going to end up being one of my shorter videos, but I just seem to keep talking about shit. Speaking of which, we do still actually have 3 of these selfie segments to battle our way through, and I'm kind of regretting this whole idea at this point. But I am too stubborn to change it now. So, wanna be on top? The next category we are looking at is hiding. Specifically hiding or covering my face. And this is something that I've done a lot in selfies, and I think it's allowed me to be a little bit more out there and exposed, literally and figuratively, in other ways in the images. Hiding your face allows a level of protection from potential embarrassment, or maybe it adds a layer of reasonable doubt that it's even me in the photos. And I really like all of the images that I've picked for this category, but the best one I think is this one from 2017, when I shoved my entire head and upper body into the leg of a pair of tights. At this time, I was about a year out from my big breakup, and I'd also been broken up with again by another person who had the same name. Despite all of this turmoil, I actually remember feeling quite good about myself around this time. The space in my life that wasn't being taken up with dating, I could now fill with weird photographic experiments in my bedroom like this one. Even though my feelings about my appearance have always been a bit fraught, I tend to feel the best about myself when I'm being creative, because it reminds me that I am far more than my looks. So being sucked up inside of a tights leg was weirdly quite freeing for me. And I like how squashed and uncomfortable my face looks in this image. So this is still in the running to becoming Beige Flannel's next top selfie, and the rest can go over there. Here's how it's looking. I've just been working on this hand mostly, but also adding in some details on the hair and elsewhere around the face. And now I think I want to focus on this patchwork blanket, some of which only has 1 coat of paint on it, some of which has 2, and some of which I have started adding the detail on top of. So I'm just going to continue with this, going over the coats that are a bit patchy to make sure that they're nice and smooth, and then adding in this texture with my small little brush, which is a nice welcome break from doing the face, because that needed a lot more concentration from me than this type of thing does. I think I mentioned earlier that this blanket was made by my gran, so it's a really special thing for me and I wanted it featured in this painting. And actually, speaking of my gran, and with the general theme of this video being about body image, I was told a lot growing up that I look like her, and I don't know how much I ever really believed it, because obviously the whole time I knew her, she was my gran, she was an elderly woman who was 60 years older than me, so it's kind of hard to see a resemblance a lot of the time. So I don't think I ever gave too much weight to it until a few years ago when I was at her funeral, and they had the little funeral pamphlets with photos of her in it, and there was this one photo of her where she must have been quite a few years younger than I am now, because she was in her nurse's uniform, but she was sat at a slightly different angle than I think I've seen her face at that age before. And I could see that she had my exact face, or maybe that should be that I have her exact face. And that was really weird to see, but also really quite wonderful, because she was just the best thing in the world to me. I can see now that I really inherited her facial structure, her softer, rounder features, which are things that I quite often dislike about my own appearance. But looking at this photo of her, I could recognise were actually really beautiful. So maybe when I'm engaging in negative self-talk in the future, I need to remember that if I feel that way about myself, it would mean that I also feel that way about her, and I just don't. So that was a good reality check for me. Right. All of this detail is going to take me quite a lot of time to put in, and I imagine, oh yes, my camera is very hot because it is generally very hot today. So I'm going to switch it off for an hour or so and work on this blanket, and then I'll show you how it's looking. It's actually the next day, because working on all of this blankety business actually took me way longer than I anticipated yesterday, and it is also unbearably hot at the minute in the UK, which has put me on a bit of a go slow. But I am starting early today in the hopes that I can get a good amount of this finished. I'm going to start working on the skirt and do some of these other details that I've missed out, and just see how far we can get by the end of the day. And I'm not going to chat to the camera too much because that is slowing me down too. So what we're going to do is zip through the penultimate round of this stupid selfie game that I've been playing while I work.
Wanna be on top?
And this week's theme is pulling faces, because apparently that is something I do a lot in photos, especially this face. I can't believe how many photos I have of myself doing that. I think that making silly faces is another way to get around the awkward earnestness of being in front of a camera. If you deliberately tried to make yourself look stupid, it suggests that you weren't trying too hard to begin with, thus should not be judged too harshly on your appearance. I think honestly it is a defense mechanism, and as far as defense mechanisms go, the judges have decided that this selfie from 2018 is hitting the brief the best. And even though I know that there are some better photos of me here that I could have chosen, I have picked this one for its more candid nature. I took this when I was at work, hence the fire door behind me, and I appreciate my lack of makeup in this photo. I've been in and out of the habit of frequently wearing makeup throughout my teens and adulthood, and I know that at this time I was still doing a really long commute, which meant leaving the house early in the morning. Thus, putting a face on was just not important to me. I have visible spots in this photo. I was eating crisps at 9 minutes past 10 in the morning, and I look exhausted. And all of that feels very honest, which is a big reason why I picked it. Beyond that, I like the textures of my knitwear and their cool tones contrasted against my reddish hair. And I also enjoy the memory of eating crisps in a shit little office in North London with some of my best friends. So well done, you are still in the running to becoming Beige Flannel's next top selfie, and goodbye to all of you. Okay, I'm done for the day, and I'm pretty pleased with the progress today. I got the skirt done, and I think that looks alright. It was a bit fiddly with all of these stripes, and to be honest, I started making it up a little bit. Trying to follow the exact pattern on this picture proved impossible, so I figured as long as the folds and stuff were correct, the number of stripes was inconsequential. and I think that looks decent. I also did this side here and painted in the side of the sofa, added some more details around here and started on the cushion at the bottom. So all that's really left is the window and the wall, and I'm going to do those tomorrow and get this damn painting finished up. The next day started with a dentist appointment, and I didn't want to talk to the camera with my half numb face, so I'm just doing a quick little voiceover here. I started by getting the window painted in, which was looking really patchy and crap while I was doing it. This is obviously the brightest part of the painting, so I was having to mix really light shades of greeny blue with lots of white to try and make it look right. Working with white paint is always a bit of a pain because the colour goes on very thinly and it needed a lot of layers to build up to the right shade, but eventually we got there and I could move on to the wall. When you're painting a big block of background like this, it can be very tempting to just slap on one flat colour over the whole thing and be done with it, but there's obviously a lot more variation than that in the shades of colour on this wall, so I tried my best to replicate it. Not sure how well I did, but it'll do. And then finally I could scrawl my BF signature onto the back of the canvas and I called it a day. The painting is finally finished. And before I turn this around and officially reveal it to you, as if you haven't already seen it a million times throughout this video, we have one final round of judging to get through.
Wanna be on top?
Our last category is bedtime, which feels fitting after a couple of weeks of working on this painting because I am now incredibly tired of it. Of all of the recurrent themes running throughout my selfie album, this one is by far the most commonly seen because I love to take a photo in, on, or around my bed. It is my safe space where I feel the most comfortable and like myself, so it makes sense that it would be a fruitful setting for self-expression. And I had a difficult time judging this category, but I have ultimately decided that the best bed selfie is this one from 2024. And I think it's noteworthy that this is the second time that this particular pair of tights is featuring in my list of winners. So maybe I just really like these tights, which I do. But I also really like this photo too. I took this on a day when I was taking lots of different photos all around my flat, trying to get interesting images that I could use for the branding of this YouTube channel. So I like that this photo has the context of a kind of playful excitement to it. The blur that shows that my legs are in motion and the colourful, chaotic background of my bedroom. This image captures a time when I'm just enjoying my home and exploring the opportunities for self-expression within this new venture. It's also a good reminder that while making videos has at times given me a complex about my appearance or my ability to complete things in a timely manner, it has also reinvigorated my excitement for making things, being creative, expressing myself, and sharing those things with other people. And ultimately, all of that is far more important to me than whether my double chin is showing, if my skin has broken out, or if my teeth look crooked. So for all of those very useful realizations, this image has truly earned its place and is still in the running to becoming Beige Channel's next top selfie. And now we can add one last contender to our list of finalists, my finished painting. Here she is. And while I know that this is far from perfect, I am really happy with this piece. As somebody who doesn't do much painting, especially portrait painting, working on this has been a real challenge for me, but a very enjoyable and satisfying one. When I look at it next to our reference image here, I can see that there are obvious differences, the likeness in the face being the main one that continues to annoy me. But all of that is ultimately unimportant, and I think that this is going to make a nice addition to my living room decor. I was originally planning to put this up in the living room at the end of this video, but that's going to have to wait because that room is currently a tip and is housing my mattress because I'm sleeping in there to see out the heat wave. I also think I would like to make a box frame for this at some point, which is why I didn't bother painting the edges of the canvas, so add that to the to-do list as well. But yeah, Here it is. As far as beige flannels next top selfie goes, I was initially thinking that I would be picking one single winner by the end of this video, but now looking at my 8 finalists all together alongside my self-portrait, I actually think that they all tell a better story as a whole, and I can't pick a winner. So maybe I'll leave that for you all to do, and you can vote for your favourite down in the comments. To everyone who has made it through this marathon video and sat through the numerous clips, photographs and paintings of my face, thank you so much. I hope that you've enjoyed and that you are all feeling as comfortable and confident in your own skins as is humanly possible. And now all that's left to say is goodbye.